So I'm Gordon Smith. I'm Professor of Obstetrics and Gynaecology at Cambridge University. I'm a consultant in fetal medicine at the Rosie Hospital. I've worked with SANS for more than 10 years in an informal role, and I'm really delighted to take on the role of an ambassador for the charity. And I look forward to working with SANS to try and do the research which saves babies' lives in the future. So having met a lot of bereaved parents through SANS, one of the most consistent views that I see from bereaved parents is a really lovely wish that other women wouldn't have to go through what they went through. That empathy with other women. You've coped with this awful thing that's happened to you, and one response is, please do something that stops this happening to women in the future. Now, we wish we could do that for every loss. But it provides a driver for trying to prevent the losses that we think are most preventable. And so that's, with my interaction with parents, that they're aware that they didn't have very sophisticated attempts at screening. And it's really very sort of encouraging for me as a researcher how positively they view our attempts to try and generate something that's better, just simply better than what they had, that has the potential to prevent these outcomes for other women that have devastated their lives. So that sort of feedback from parents is just tremendously encouraging. And as we're beginning to do the POPS2 trial and seeing patients with intervention again, when we present the results to the women who are participating in the trial, it's very positive what we get back. It's our early days and it's an initial experience. But women are naturally anxious in the pregnancy. No woman wants to hear they're having a complication. Women don't want to hear they're at high risk. But what they really want to avoid is being at high risk, being vulnerable to complications and not knowing about it. So one thing that's really helped us, one thing that's been a great encouragement in the research is the very positive perspective of the bereaved parents that I've met in SANS, and also the sort of population of pregnant women that we interact with as we do the research. POPS2 is our current study. It follows on, as you might expect, from POPS. In the POPS study, we recruited over 4,500 women having the first baby, and we saw them at 4 time points during the pregnancy, 12, 20, 28 and 36 weeks. We obtained blood and we scanned them, and then we collected samples of the placenta at birth. And what we were trying to do in that study was identify a new predictive test that would help us identify those low-risk women who actually have a high-risk pregnancy we just didn't know about. And looking at the POPS data, we've come up with a predictive algorithm based on a blood test, based on scans and based on the mother's characteristics that identify a particularly high-risk group. And so what we're doing in POPS2 is we're applying that screening test to another group of women, another 4,500 unselected first pregnancies, and then doing the test, the research, to try and determine, does knowing the result of this test result in avoiding bad outcomes. The study is not big enough to study stillbirth directly, but it is big enough to study things which are associated with stillbirth, fetal growth restriction and preeclampsia. We envisaged that this would lead to a much larger study, which would then potentially coincide with implementation of the screening test. So this is a long haul. You don't change clinical practice based on a year or 2 years or 3 years work. This is a long process. But we really have tried to set up to maximise our chances of success.